Picture this, a tiny, flickering light from a desk lamp cutting through the dim haze of a late-night office. That's where I am right now, surrounded by the hum of a building that's long since gone quiet. My name's Ingrid, I'm 34, and I've been an office manager for what feels like forever in this mid-sized city that never quite feels like home. My days are a blur of spreadsheets, endless emails, and schedules that seem to multiply when I'm not looking. I'm the one who keeps this corporate machine running, even if no one notices the gears grinding behind the scenes. It's not glamorous, but it's mine, a steady, predictable rhythm that I've clung to for years. I've got a husband, Trent, who's 36 and runs his own garage on the edge of town. We've been together for a decade, married for 7 of those years, and there was a time when just hearing his voice at the end of a long day felt like coming up for air. He was my safe harbor, the guy who could fix anything: cars, leaky faucets, even my bad moods with a lopsided grin. But somewhere along the way, that harbor started feeling more like a distant shore. His hours at the garage stretch later and later, and I'm often still here at the office when he's locking up. We pass each other like ships in the night, exchanging a few tired words over dinner before collapsing into bed. It's not that we fight or hate each other. It's worse. In a way, it's the silence, the slow drift into a kind of quiet coexistence that leaves me staring at the ceiling at night, wondering when we stopped really seeing each other. I don't know if it's the loneliness or just the weight of routine, but I've started finding little pockets of escape online. Not anything wild or reckless, just a space to breathe, to talk about things that don't revolve around deadlines or oil changes. There's this harmless chat forum I stumbled across, centered around books and hobbies, stuff I used to love before life got so heavy. I've even made a couple of acquaintances there, guys named Cormac and Roland. They're just usernames on a screen, people I trade thoughts with about novels or random crafts, nothing deep or personal. But somehow, those small interactions feel like a lifeline on days when the silence at home is too loud. When the office gets to be too much, I've got a secret spot I escape to, the rooftop. It's nothing fancy, just a flat stretch of concrete with a rusty railing, but it's got a view of the city skyline that makes the world feel a little bigger, a little less suffocating. I come up here during late-night work sessions, when the floor below is empty and the only sound is the distant hum of traffic. Up there, with the cool air on my face and the lights twinkling like scattered stars, I can think. I can feel the ache in my chest, the one I don't name out loud, and it's in those quiet moments that I started to crave something more than just fleeting distractions. About 6 months ago, I found myself diving deeper into that book lovers forum I mentioned. It was like stumbling into a hidden room full of people who got me, a place where I could lose myself in discussions about dog-eared novels and forget the hollow echo of my own house. I'd sit there, hunched over my laptop in the dim kitchen light, while the world outside slept, and I'd type out my thoughts on everything from gothic mysteries to modern poetry. It was my sanctuary, a way to drown out the silence that clung to every corner of my life with Trent. That's where I first connected with Cormac and Roland. Cormac, this 38-year-old freelance writer, had a way with words that could cut through any dull moment. His posts were sharp, witty, always laced with some kind of insight that made me rethink entire chapters of books I thought I knew by heart. I remember the first time he messaged me directly. It was just a silly meme about a character from a novel we both adored. A ridiculous image of a brooding hero with a caption that made me snort coffee all over my keyboard. I laughed out loud for the first time in days, sitting there alone at the kitchen table, and I messaged him back without a second thought. From then on, our chats became this little burst of color in my gray routine. Then there was Roland, a 40-year-old history teacher with a quiet kind of warmth that seeped through every word he typed. His responses were never rushed, always thoughtful, like he was really listening to what I had to say. Early on, he shared a story about a rough patch in his life, a time when he felt completely unmoored after a family loss. I sat there reading his message, my chest tight, feeling this strange connection to a stranger on the other side of a screen. It made me brave enough to share a piece of my own truth, how lonely I'd been feeling, how the days seemed to blur together with nothing to anchor me. He didn't judge or offer empty platitudes. He just said he understood, and somehow, that was enough. For the first time in a long while, I felt seen. Those conversations started as something small, just a way to pass the time, but they quickly turned into a nightly ritual. I'd wait until Trent was asleep, his heavy breathing filling the bedroom, and I'd slip out to the living room with my phone. Under the covers of the couch, with the glow of the screen as my only light, I'd log in and feel this rush of excitement every time a new message popped up. It was like a secret I carried, a little world that was just mine, where I could be someone other than the tired office manager or the wife waiting for a husband who barely spoke. Each ping felt like a heartbeat, pulling me out of the monotony and into something alive. Meanwhile, life at home stayed the same. Trent would stumble, "I can hardly believe it's happening." After months of late-night chats and stolen moments of connection through a screen, both Cormac and Roland messaged me back with a yes. They agreed to meet in person, right here on the office rooftop, the night after my late shift. My heart raced as I read their responses, a mix of excitement and nerves bubbling up inside me. It felt like stepping off a ledge into the unknown, but I couldn't stop smiling as I typed out the details, telling them to come up around 10 p.m., when the building would be mostly empty. I've spent so long imagining their voices, their laughs, that the thought of seeing them face to face feels almost surreal, like a dream I'm afraid I'll wake up from. The day of the meeting, I'm a bundle of restless energy. Every task at the office feels slower, every tick of the clock louder, as I count down the hours. After my shift ends, I linger in the bathroom on my floor, fussing over my appearance in a way I haven't in years. I've picked out a casual outfit, a soft sweater and jeans that hug my frame just right, nothing too flashy, but enough to make me feel a little more confident. Staring into the mirror, I smooth down my hair, noticing the faint flush in my cheeks and the nervous glint in my eyes. I barely recognize myself, this version of me who's daring to step outside the lines I've drawn for so long. I splash cold water on my face to calm down, take a deep breath, and grab the blanket and thermos of coffee I've stashed in my bag. I tell myself it's just a friendly meetup, nothing more, as I head for the stairwell, muttering to no one in particular that I need some fresh air if anyone asks. Pushing open the heavy door to the rooftop, I'm hit with a rush of cool night breeze that instantly soothes the jittery heat under my skin. The city sprawls out below, a sea of flickering lights and distant noise, the hum of traffic weaving through the air like a low, constant heartbeat. Above, the stars are faint, struggling to pierce through the urban glow, but they are there, tiny pinpricks of hope in the vast darkness. I spread the blanket out near the edge, far from the door, where the rusty railing frames the skyline like a jagged picture frame. Sitting cross-legged with the thermos beside me, I feel this strange sense of freedom, like I've slipped out of my own life for a moment and into something bigger, something untamed. Every creak of the building, every distant honk, makes me jump a little, my eyes darting to the door as I wait for them to show up. When the door finally swings open, my breath catches. Cormac steps out first, his tousled dark hair catching the faint light from the rooftop bulb, a lopsided smile spreading across his face as he spots me. He's taller than I pictured, with a casual ease in the way he moves, wearing a worn leather jacket over a plain tee. Behind him is Roland, quieter, more reserved, but his kind eyes find mine almost instantly, warm and steady even in the dimness. He's got a gentle build, a soft gray scarf looped around his neck, and there's something grounding about his presence, like he's the calm to Cormac's storm. I stand up, brushing off my jeans, and wave them over, my voice a little shakier than I'd like as I say hey. They cross the rooftop with easy strides, and soon we're sitting in a small circle on the blanket, the city humming below us like it's cheering us on. At first, it's just light chatter. Books we've read recently, funny stories from the forum, the kind of stuff that's safe and familiar. But there's this undercurrent, this spark, that makes every laugh feel brighter, every shared glance heavier. Cormac's got this infectious energy, cracking jokes that have me doubling over, clutching my sides, while Roland chimes in with these quiet, thoughtful observations that make us all pause and nod. I pour coffee from the thermos into little plastic cups I brought, and the warmth of the drink in my hands feels like a small anchor in the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. That night on the rooftop, with Cormac and Roland, felt like a stolen slice of something I hadn't realized I'd been starving for. We talked until the city lights seemed to dim, until the air grew colder, and my voice was hoarse from laughing. When we finally parted ways, with promises to stay in touch, I walked back down those stairs feeling lighter than I had in years, but also heavier with something I couldn't quite name. The days that followed were a strange blur of emotions. I woke up each morning with a knot in my chest, torn between the guilt of what that meeting might mean for my marriage and this undeniable thrill that lingered from connecting with two people who seemed to see parts of me I'd buried long ago. I kept replaying moments from that night, the way Cormac's eyes crinkled when he teased me about my coffee pouring skills, or how Roland's quiet nod made me feel understood without needing to explain myself. It was like a secret I carried in my pocket, something bright and dangerous that I couldn't stop touching, even though I knew I should leave it alone. At home, I tried to act like nothing had changed. I'd stand at the stove, stirring a pot of spaghetti, forcing a smile as I called out to Trent that dinner was almost ready. I'd ask him about his day at the garage, hoping to bridge the gap between us with small talk about carburetors or difficult customers. But every word felt hollow, like I was reading lines from a script I didn't believe in anymore. And Trent, he wasn't helping. He'd always been a man of few words, but now his silence felt heavier, sharper somehow. His answers were short, clipped, like he was biting back something he didn't want to say. I'd catch him watching me sometimes, his gaze lingering a little too long, his jaw tight in a way that made my skin prickle with unease. It was like he could sense the shift in me, even if I hadn't said a word about where I'd been or who I'd been with. One evening, as I was clearing the dishes, I noticed him sitting at the kitchen table, hunched over his phone. His brow was furrowed, his thumb hovering over the screen like he was debating something. My heart stuttered as I walked closer, drying my hands on a towel, and asked if everything was okay. He looked up at me, his eyes dark and unreadable, and then quickly locked the screen before shoving the phone into his pocket. "Yeah, fine," he muttered, but his voice was tight, and the way he avoided my gaze made my stomach churn. I stood there for a moment, the damp towel still in my hands, feeling like the ground beneath me was starting to crack, even if I couldn't see the fissures yet. Meanwhile, I couldn't stop myself from messaging Cormac and Roland. I told myself I'd be careful, that I'd keep things light and distant after the intensity of meeting in person. I suggested we stick to online chats for now, no more late-night gatherings, as if typing those words could draw a line I wouldn't cross again. But even as I sent those messages, I felt the pull, the craving for that rush of connection. Cormac would reply with a quick quip that made me smile despite myself, and Roland would send these longer, thoughtful messages that I'd read over and over, letting his words wrap around me like a warm blanket. I hated myself for how much I needed it, for how I'd sit there in the dark of the living room, phone glowing in my lap, feeling like I was betraying Trent with every tap of my fingers. But I couldn't stop. It was like an addiction, a high I chased even as the guilt gnawed at me, whispering that I'd already gone too far. Every time I passed the stairwell at work that led to the rooftop, I felt this strange mix of longing and dread. That place had become something more than just a concrete escape. It was a symbol of the freedom I'd tasted, but also a reminder of the danger I'd invited into my life. I avoided going. I'm sitting on our old, worn-out couch, the one with the sagging cushions, and the faint coffee stain on the armrest that we've never quite managed to scrub out. The living room is barely lit, just a single lamp casting a weak, yellowish glow across the space, leaving the corners shrouded in shadow. It's late, the kind of late where the world outside feels like it's holding its breath, and the only sound is the faint tick of the clock on the wall. My hands are in my lap, fingers twisting together, unable to stay still, as Trent stands across from me, his face a storm I can't read. He's holding a small USB drive, this tiny piece of plastic that feels like a grenade about to go off in the middle of our life. My stomach is a tight knot, every nerve in my body screaming that something is wrong, so wrong even before he speaks. He doesn't say much at first, just walks over to the coffee table, grabs his laptop, and plugs the drive in with a click that echoes in the silence. I watch him, my breath shallow, as the screen flickers to life, casting a cold blue light across his features. His jaw is set, his eyes fixed on whatever he's pulling up, and I want to ask what's happening, want to demand answers, but my throat is dry, my voice trapped somewhere deep inside. Then he turns the laptop toward me and I see it, me, on the rooftop. The grainy footage is unmistakable, even in the dim recording. There I am, sitting on that blanket with the city lights sprawling behind me, laughing, my face open in a way it hasn't been in years. Cormac is there, his lopsided grin catching the camera's eye, and Roland, quieter, but his presence just as real. My hand is in Cormac's for a fleeting moment, a gesture I barely remember but now looks so damning, and my voice, God, my voice, rings out clear as day through the laptop speakers. I'm confessing things I've never even dared to whisper to myself in the dark. Things about feeling lost, about craving something more, about the ache that's been eating at me for so long. I've forgotten what it's like to feel whole. Every word is a blade cutting deeper as I watch myself spill my soul to two people who aren't my husband. I shake my head before I can stop myself, the denial bubbling up like a reflex. It's not what it looks like. I stammer, my voice cracking, barely above a whisper. Trent, it was just talk, just a moment. It didn't mean anything. But the words sound flimsy, even to me, and when I meet his gaze, I freeze. His eyes are a storm of hurt, raw and unfiltered, mixed with an anger that makes my chest tighten, and beneath it all, betrayal so deep it's like I've carved a piece out of him. That look silences me more than any shout could. I open my mouth to say more, to explain, but nothing comes out. I'm drowning in the weight of his stare, in the realization that I've shattered something I didn't even know was still breakable between us. He doesn't yell, not at first. His voice is low, controlled, but every word lands like a punch. 10 years, Ingrid, 10 years, and I thought we meant something to each other. We made vows, promises, and now I see this. You up there pouring your heart out to strangers, saying things you've never said to me. Things I've been waiting to hear, begging to hear, while you've shut me out for years. He pauses, his hands gripping the edge of the coffee table, knuckles white, and I can see the effort it takes for him to keep his voice steady. How could you share that part of yourself with them? How could you give them what you've kept from me? I try to respond, my mind scrambling for something, anything, to make this right. I was lonely, Trent. I manage, my voice trembling, thick with unshed tears. I felt like I was drowning in silence and I didn't know how to reach you. I didn't mean to hurt you, I swear. I needed someone to hear me. My words hang in the air, fragile and desperate, but they don't seem to reach him. Trent just shakes his head, a slow, heavy motion, and turns away from me. He doesn't say another word that night. He just walks down the hallway, his footsteps heavy on the hardwood, and shuts the bedroom door behind him with a quiet click that feels louder than any slam could ever be. I'm left sitting there, the laptop still open, the frozen image of myself on the rooftop staring back at me like a ghost of a life I've just destroyed. The days after that confrontation are a slow, aching blur. Trent moves into the spare room without a discussion, without even looking at me as he carries a duffel bag of clothes past me in the hall. The house feels like a shell now, hollowed out by the weight of what's been broken. We barely speak, and when we do, it's only about the mundane bills that need paying, groceries we're out of, schedules for who's using the car. His voice is flat, stripped of any warmth, and every clipped sentence is a reminder of the chasm between us. I try to catch his eye, to find some flicker of the man who used to smile at me over morning coffee, but he keeps his gaze averted, like looking at me is too painful. I don't blame him, not really, but the silence cuts deeper than I ever thought possible. I've tried to make things right, or at least to start. One night after he's gone to bed, I sit at the kitchen table with a pen and a stack of paper, pouring my heart out in a way I never could face to face. I write him a letter, pages and pages of messy handwriting, explaining everything, how empty I felt, how I let that loneliness drive me to a place I never meant to go, how sorry I am for betraying his trust. I beg for forgiveness, for a chance to rebuild, to talk like we used to. I fold the letter with trembling hands and leave it on the kitchen counter, where I know he'll see it in the morning, my name scrawled on the envelope in a shaky script. But the next day, I find it still there, unopened, untouched, like a silent rejection of everything I've tried to say. I stare at it for a long time, the ache in my chest growing before I finally tuck it into a drawer, unable to throw it away but knowing it won't change a thing. In my desperation, I reach out to the only other people I thought might understand, Cormac and Roland. I send them messages, my fingers hesitating over every word, telling them about the confrontation, about the recording, about how everything has fallen apart. I don't know what I'm expecting, comfort, maybe, or some kind of validation that what we shared wasn't meaningless. But their responses are polite, sympathetic in a surface-level way, and ultimately distant. Cormac types out a quick, "I'm sorry you're going through this," with a promise to chat later, but there's no depth to it, no real concern. Roland takes longer to reply, his message thoughtful as always, but it's clear he's keeping me at arm's length, offering kind words but no real connection. It hits me then, like a cold wave, that what I thought was a profound bond with them was never as deep as I'd built it up to be in my mind. They were just voices on a screen, temporary escapes, and now even that illusion is gone. The office rooftop, that place I once ran to for solace, has become a haunt I can't face. I avoid the stairwell altogether now, taking the elevator even when it's slower, just to keep from passing that door. The thought of standing up there again, with the city lights mocking me, makes my skin crawl. It's no longer a sanctuary. It's a trap, a reminder of the night that changed everything, of the words I spoke that I can't take back, echoing in my mind as I step into the elevator, hoping that one day, the weight of regret will finally lift. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.